So what exactly is leadership? Everybody wants to be a leader, everybody wants to lead, nobody wants to be left behind. But then to be a good leader, you need to have some qualities. And I will just go through those qualities and we will discuss some great leaders, may it be in the military, may it be in sports. Corporate leader doesn't mean that you only have to be in the armed forces. Anybody leading any team, even in your family, like in your family, your father, mother is a leader, or the head of the institution is your leader. You look up towards him. Amongst your groups also, you have leaders. In a daily life, you all are leading in some way or the other. You're leading your friends, you're leading your siblings, or anybody else who is following you, so that you can achieve a goal or a mission. So I will structure my lecture in a following phases. Next, please. Yeah. So we will go through this sequence. First, I will tell you something about life skills. Leadership is also a type of life skill. And what are life skills? Life skills are basically those skills or those habits in you, the knowledge in you, which you have or you will do or carry out to make yourself successful, to be a good leader, to be a good motivator, or to show the way to others. Then we'll discuss on what is leadership, then certain types, the concept, then process of a leadership, and then I am being from the army, we will talk about military leadership. That is nothing very different from day-to-day leadership. And then we will talk about the qualities that a military leader should have, and that also you all should try to imbibe. And then some life skills which are important for a good leader. That is, if you want people to follow you. And finally, we will talk about some great leaders and try to analyze their life, what qualities they had, and how we call them as good leaders. Next. So coming on to what are life skills. So why I have put these sayings here? Why do you need life skills? Why do you need to prioritize? Why do you need to plan? Why do you need to motivate others? Why do you need teamwork, communication skills, interpersonal relations? These are all types of life skills, because you don't know tomorrow you're alive or not. Do the thing in time. If you plan, and this saying, life is a first impression. You get only one shot at it, so make it good. So if you have some skills in you or imbibed in you, you can do it in a much better way. And then if you have to enjoy life, because all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So nobody wants to be a dull boy or a girl. You want to party also. तो party करना है तो पढ़ाई भी करना पड़ेगा टाइम पे. तो पढ़ाई अगर टाइम पे करके पार्टी करना है तो टाइम को मैनेज करना पड़ेगा. Right? Next. So life skill is basically one's ability for positive behavior that help us making correct choices in life. And these enable people to translate your knowledge and attitude or values into action. So basically, whatever knowledge you have, whatever attitudes you have, you want them to translate into action. And to translate into action, you need to know how to do it. There are certain things like decision making, like time management, ways of motivating others, then how you gel with others in your team, in your class, in your family. So these are fundamentals which you have to know. A leader, if he cannot manage his time to do a mission, is he successful? No. So you need to have certain qualities. Next, please. So what does life skills give you? It helps you do everything in a correct fashion. Here it is not only English, you can know more languages, you can know how to face interviews, improve your working ethics and skills, develop social skills, remove stage fear, that means be a good public speaker and be confident about yourself. Next. Next. So if you want to do all that, you need to have some skills, and these are some of the life skills that you have, and you need to know how to handle them. And if you handle them in the correct perspective, you will move ahead in life to be more successful. Next, please. These are again some of the life skills that I was mentioning, which you need as a leader, as a person, as a corporate manager, as anybody. To be an intelligent person, you must be creative and analyze critically. You must have empathy and sympathy in you. You must have the fundamentals of decision making. Like, why I'm talking about decision making, if you don't make a decision, you are leaving your subordinates, your team in a lurch. So please make a decision. Right or wrong is secondary. And stand by it. Or before making a decision, take the inputs from people and then move ahead. A good person should be able to handle stress in the correct method and the perspective, so that you don't feel under pressure. You should be able to handle pressure. And especially if you have a team looking on to you, you have to play well, lead well. Like in case of Sachin, he's a master blaster, but when he was a captain, neither the team performed well, neither was he performing well. That is why friend Dhoni came into his place. Next. Life skills at the correct place, your quality of life improves. You can study top and party also. Next, please. So, what does this saying say? If you imbibe the correct life skills, you reach the top to lead from the front, and you be a good leader. So coming on to our topic of today, next please. We will be talking about some aspects of leadership. This is just another thing, because if you have to be a leader, you have to be an example to your team. If you have to lead from the front, you have to set an example. A leader cannot be like a manager that he's sitting in the office and expect everybody to work. You should be there with your team. Next, please. So this is what the student said. Leadership is the ability to develop a vision that motivates others to move with a passion towards a common goal. A leader should have a vision which motivates his team, his followers, to move towards a goal which is acceptable by him and the team completely. So he should have foresight. He should be able to influence the other people that the objective firstly is achievable, can be reached, and then the plan that it makes should be with the concurrence of others, and everybody should be then motivated to move towards the goal in the accepted time frame. Because for every mission, every work, there is generally a time frame and nothing is kept open-ended. Next, please. So this is what I have just explained, and he has very rightly brought out in the correct words that it is influencing people towards an accepted goal, and everybody moves towards it as a team, communicating with each other and reaching the final aim of the mission in the accepted time frame. Next, please. So, good leadership is basically leading you to success. A leader leads people, influences, commands, and guides them in the correct way. Next. So, who is a leader? A person who influences and directs others. Then there is another terminology which is command. Command is basically the authority. Like when you have a team, somebody is made the captain, or there is a manager. So he is given that vested power by the authorities that he can lead. So that is the command, the authority to be a leader. This is in case of an organization or an institution. But then there are people who the complete environment looks up towards a leader because of his work, because of his qualities. And management, again, in the organization is the aspect which gives basically the resources of men, material, money, which is to be used for accomplishment of a task. And then comes the fundamentals by the leader, that is to plan, organize, direct, coordinate, and control. Because this is the aspect of a leader, because he has to plan with the thoughts of his team, coordinate and direct everybody towards the goal with the resources that has been given by the organization or what the team has been able to conjure up. Next, please. So, these are some of the characteristics of a leader, and a leader firstly must have followers, and then this is very important, must have a working relation with his followers, so that if there is a working relation, then achieving the goal is easy, influencing his followers is easy. And this is a continuous process, and it becomes easy for the leader to influence his men without pressurizing. Because if the team has understood that this man has the qualities, he's the leader, if they are sure about the mission, the viability of the mission, everybody will try to move towards it. And this line which says that leadership is a power relation is basically the command and the authority that has been given so that he can guide you all, take you all in the correct direction, and his commands are obeyed. Next. And then this word, the leadership trait. Leadership trait is basically nothing but the qualities imbibed in you, helping you to be the leader of the team, to take it, to move ahead. And then leaders are not born. Leaders can be groomed and trained. And that is what we do in the army, in the academies. They all come in as youngsters like you. 4 years of training is basically to groom you as leaders. So, academy में क्या सिखाया जाता है in NDA? So this is just a summary of what I have been just now talking. These are the definition of the terms of what is leadership, what are the traits, what are the fundamental guidelines or principles, and what is the authority. Command is not only in the army or in the military parlance, it is for everybody. Every organization also talks about command, because unless that authority is vested into a person, that person may not be followed. Because in an organization, you need to nominate somebody with the power who can lead or take on the onus of being the leader. Next, please. So these are two main responsibilities, be it in the corporate or in the armed forces, in this playing field or anywhere. One is accomplishment of the mission, that is foremost, and before that, before accomplishment of the mission, is the welfare of your men. Here it means the team, not only men but the ladies and everybody who are part of the team. So welfare of your men or your team is foremost, and there is a credo in the army when we pass out, next please, which says this. When we all pass out from the academies, this is Sir Philip Chetwood's motto. So what does this mean? So as good citizens or as good military men or anybody as a good person, your country stands first every time and always. And then if you are a leader, the comfort of your team, I will not say men here, your team comes next. Because if their welfare is looked after, half your work is done, half your mission is accomplished. And then comes your own comfort. So that is why a leader has to lead from the front and has to set an example. Next. So there are 4 factors of leadership. There has to be a leader. So why is a lady leading? Because of Nari Shakti. What is the going on thing nowadays in our country? You see ladies everywhere. So here the leader is also lady, and you need somebody who is following you. And when the leader has a follower, there has to be communication between them, and situation is the mission which has to be accomplished, or the reason why the team has been created or the team is there. And I can proudly say the concept of Nari Shakti that has come in, the lady officers in the army are no less than the gents. And neither are they in the corporate worlds. So they are really leading and leading well. बल्कि अभी तो the CEOs, the commanding officers, the first lady and the commanding officer has also taken over as a full colonel. Next, please. So, leader has to have an honest understanding of these followers and teams. The follower has to know the fundamental of the starting point and know the leader and also be able to grasp the mission or the aim. Next. And everybody in the team needs to communicate and have good relation between them so that achieving the mission is easy. Like if you have these 5 fingers here, if they're all going into different directions, can you achieve anything? No. So you have to become a fist. किसी ने बोला मुट्ठी बंद तो मुट्ठी बंद ही होता है. ऐसे करके कोई घूसा तो नहीं मार सकता है, ऐसे ही मार सकते हो. So you are a team at that time. And घूसा मारने के लिए that situation has to be there. That is the mission or what the team has to achieve. Next, please. And these are the concepts. The quality concept, that is the aspects of character. Now, a leader has to have integrity, loyalty, and honesty. Because if the leader is not true, you can't accept his team to be true and honest. They will all be going haywire. So these are the major skills or life skills that a person needs to have. A good leader needs to have his character in place, be honest, loyal to his organization, loyal to his country, loyal to his men, loyal to his team, and have the highest level of integrity. Like in every annual confidential reports, may it be in civil, I hope you all know what's the annual confidential report. You will all come to know when you start serving or doing a job. These 3 aspects in the report have prime value. Unless you get full marks in these 3 aspects of loyalty, integrity, and honesty, your complete thing or your personality is under question. Then comes this situation, that is how the individual can best deal with a certain particular requirement of the mission with the skills of himself or herself and the team put together. And then we have the functional concept, which is basically relating to the life skills intermingling with each other along with the situations and the different skills in the team and how best the leader can use these talents of the team to achieve his mission. Next, please. So, an effective leader, what is needed from him? Firstly, he should have a vision of what exactly do you want, what is the requirement, and then think ahead with the various resources of men, money, and material that is given to you, so that you can achieve this in the best possible way. Because that is what the organization or the institution wants. and then communicating this complete strategy, which has been decided by the complete team, and the leader gives out a final decision and how it can be implemented on ground and made into an actionable plan. Next, please. So this is what you expect from your leader, to give you direction, to build up your team, commitment by the team, and the example that the leader shows to you. And for the leader to set an example, what does he have to be good at? Yes, anybody? If you want your leader to set an example, what should the leader be able to do? Anybody? Pardon? Accountable for what? So the leader has to be, that's right. But if I have to be a good leader, you want me to be a good leader, and I have to set an example. I have to know my work, my professional skill has to be number you know. Unless I am good at the work, you can't expect me to set an example. If I am the captain of your football team, if I can't play football, will you accept me? Or can I set an example? No. So your professional knowledge of wherever you are as a leader has to be good. You have to read, you have to practice to be accepted as a leader. कोई नहीं चाहेगा किसी गुग्गू को ऊपर बैठा के बताओ लीडर है. हम लोग हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं, वो तो बड़ा चार्ली है कहते हैं नहीं. But if he is good, you will automatically respect him or her as your leader. Next, please. Next. So when you are a leader, there are basically 3 types of styles that you can follow. One is the authoritarian or the autocratic style, like Hitler, or to some extent like our present Prime Minister. So when you're authoritative, you do not listen to anybody's fundamentals, ideas. जो अपना करना है वही करो, जैसे हिटलर करता था. And finally he lost and he met with his doomsday. Then is democratic or participative. Leader says, भाई सब अपने अपने आइडिया दो, सब अपने अपने तरीके से चलते हैं. Even that is not correct. Because then you are going into different directions and you are not reaching any place in a cohesive manner. So you will have to think, let everybody think, and then have the leader take a decision with everybody's concurrence and be participative, and a mix of all this, next please, makes you the perfect leader. Just go through these slides. In an autocratic leadership, everything is dependent on the leader. If he says go, everybody goes, or everybody keeps sitting down doing nothing, twiddling his thumbs, because leader ne to humko bola nahi. So everybody keeps waiting for orders, which is not right. That shows that the team is not motivated. And also, the team feels that हम क्यों करें? वो तो बॉस बोलेगा, लीडर बोलेगा तो हम हिलेंगे, which is not the correct thought process. It demotivates the team. because the leader is always shouting. Next. Next, please. Democratic. This is जो हम सबको बहुत अच्छी तरह पता है, अपना काम नहीं करना, आइडिया देना, साइड पे हो जाना है. Again, this leads to everybody talking but nobody taking a decision. And the leader is left high and dry onto himself. Next is the middle way. I as a leader take everybody's ideology, takes the best possible idea, and then with my professional knowledge, my own skills, try to implement the best way the goal can be achieved. Because if I let everybody talk, everybody will only talk, do no work. So if ideas are taken and the leader gives his point of view, क्या होगा? You will all move towards success or achieving of the goal. Right? Next. So this is the styles of leadership put into one slide. Every time also participative may not be right. Sometimes you have to be autocratic. Sometimes the leader has to just say, shut up, this is what you all have to do, and this is what you will all do. Because, especially in the armed forces, when you are leading your men in a battle or a war, you are leading them where? Where? You are leading them in a battlefield, right? You know that when you are fighting, you may die. So you need a very high level of motivation. There may be some person who wants to cuddle out and say, "Bhai, main to nahi jaunga." That is the time everybody has to go, and that is when an autocratic order has to be passed. Or something dangerous, where the leader has to stay. Like even in the coal mines, if given a chance, the miners will not want to go. Muft ka tankha lena chahenge. That is where the manager has to give out his mind and say that this has to be done in this way only, because he is professionally skilled. Next, please. Yes, he is not at that moment leading. He is in a unit. Your batchmates, they will be lieutenants and captains. They are young officers. If they are left to do what they want, they will not do what they have to do. So there are instructions given which he follows. But as he grows up, after 10 years, as these batchmates come back to me, they will say, no, it is not autocratic. My own son is a captain in the Corps of Engineers. So it has to be at this stage a unidirection orders, because if you leave everybody to do what they want, then instructions will not be followed. And these are not orders. These are instructions of how the thing is to be done. But then there are places where the leader is given a free hand to do how he wants to do, especially in situations in the counter-insurgencies. In J&K, ask your friends who are there. Your friends will be all lieutenants. What's your age? 21. So they just must have got commissioned after 2-3 years when they get posted to field areas. Okay, good. So ask this major when he is there in the field or this thing. he just doesn't follow instructions. If he is leading a company, his commanding officer would have given him the leeway to do some things as per his requirement. You all must have seen, or it was in the news about a couple of years back, there was a Major Saab, when he was to dispel a crowd in J&K, he tied up one of these local civilians in front of his jeep. One Major Thapa was there. You must have seen this in the news. And he went through the crowd, putting the fear of God into him. And for that, he was commended. Though it was an inhuman thing to do. But then he and his section of men would have got lynched by that mob. So he did what his thought told him, and in that situation, better, was the very correct thing. Caught hold of one of the civilians, गाड़ी के सामने बांधा, निकल गया, dispersed the mob. And none of his seniors would have let him down, but he got a commendation card for that. So you, in the army also, like he said, every time if you start using your brain, then why are the instructions there? There are standing orders or instructions for everything. So unless you follow them, somebody has thought about it and made these instructions. And the modern thoughts are there. Then there are think tanks. There are research organizations within the defense and the army also, where you think, people write papers, and then strategies and concepts are evolved. So it is not always that it has to be only a single track. But then, if the soldier is not made to follow instructions, koi ladai mein jayega nahi. So understand? So, why you have to follow instructions? क्या कह रहा है? So in a war, there is no runner-up. Either you win or you lose. So you want to be with the winning side or the losing side? Winning side, very good. So for that you will have to follow instructions, you will have to know your job well. And move to the next slide. So your motivation level has to be why as a leader. You can't be a disgruntled officer or a leader in the armed forces, because then men will not respect you, because everybody likes to see a smiling face, and a smile can achieve a lot of things. Next. So the ultimate leader is the one who keeps a cool head, does not take stress, communicates well with everybody, and even in the midst of chaos. How many Bengalis are there? Chap naina means doesn't take pressure. Load नहीं लेता है, and goes through with his team successfully. Next, please. So a military leader has to be a good soldier first before being a commander. Soldier बनने के लिए he has to be professionally skilled. He has to know his profession well, should read well, be an instructor himself. He should be able to clarify everybody's doubt and be a personal technician. That means knows his job well, counsels. Somebody has a problem. If you are going to battle with me, somebody may be feeling shit scared because it does really need guts when bullets are flying around. And remember one thing, between heroism and fear, there is just a thin line. है ना वो ऋतिक रोशन वाला ऐड माउंटेन ड्यू का, डर के आगे क्या है? यस। तो जो डर गया वो मर गया, और जो डर को काबू कर लिया वो क्या हुआ? मोटरसाइकिल लेके पहाड़ से कूद गया। तो प्लीज डोंट डू दैट, ट्राई टू लीड योर टीम वेल। ऋतिक रोशन जम्प्ड इनटू विद अ बॉडी डबल, नीचे नेट था, आपके लिए नेट नहीं होगा। एंड बी द कस्टोडियन ऑफ योर मेंस, नहीं, यहाँ तो नारी शक्ति है इसलिए इट विल बी योर टीम्स वेलफेयर, चाहे वो मैन हो, चाहे वुमन हो, लेडी हो, कोई भी है। यू हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ योर टीम्स वेलफेयर. If they are comfortable, then your team will reach the required goal. Next. And these are your professional ethics of loyalty, integrity, and honesty. And you have to be selfless to be a good leader. If you are selfless, then only you can achieve what you need to achieve. Next. This is again what I have been talking about leadership here. I will not say only military, because as a leader you need to influence and direct your team in such a way that you go towards the goal and accomplish it. And the traits are the qualities that you must have to be a good leader, and the guiding fundamentals of why and how a leader is selected, or why you should be accepted by your followers as a leader. Now, why do you call these political chaps as leaders? They are all self-styled. है नहीं? Most of them are not worth being your leaders. Next. So, a leader and a manager, what this boy correctly brought out, is a military leader. When you are young, next, you are following orders. As you grow up to a middle level, you start thinking. And when you grow up and have stars on your shoulders, you become a commander, and you are dwelling into strategies and giving out thoughts after taking them from the environment. Next, please. So this is between a leader and a manager. A leader is innovative, he will develop, he will not do a copycat paste. He will focus on the people and try to gain their trust. And his vision will be long, foresight hoga, so that you don't have to think, you have to think 5 years ahead. And then ask the reason with your eyes on the horizon. That is, you are thinking ahead. And be original. Challenge the situation as your own and try to do the right things. While a manager will just follow what is there in the book and not try to be innovative, because he just has to do his 9 to 5 job. So this is what is the difference between a leader and a manager. Manager is also a type of leader, but then he's just managing the day-to-day activities of the factory or the firm or the institution or wherever he is. Next, please. This is a saying that if you treat a man like what he is, give him the right love and care, he can be what you want him to be. And if I can motivate a person to what I want that person to be, he will be more motivated and be more part of the team. Next, please. So these are the basic traits. A leader has to be loyal, courageous. Courageous here doesn't mean only कि बंदूक उठाया चल पड़ा. He has to have moral courage. If he has done a wrong, he should have the spine to stand up and say that yes, I have done the fault and it is me who should be blamed for and punished, not my team. Should not lie. A wrong decision taken by him should morally stand up and say, ये मेरी गलती है, and then have willpower, because everything is in the mind. If you are strong mentally, you do not come under stress. And if you are not mentally strong, you will break down at the smallest of reasons. And professional knowledge. You have to study, read. You are a student every day. You learn from everybody. Because if you learn, your horizons increase, your foresight increases, and you can keep thinking ahead of the times. So if you read, see, and imbibe, you will always grow. Then initiative, think out of the box. Take everybody's ideas. Do not just be autocratic. If you have read an instruction, think why. And if you feel something is wrong, walk up to your senior and say, sir, this is how it could have been done. Put your point across with moral courage. You will find that your boss or your leader or your commander or whoever he is will accept it and try to have it changed. Then make the correct judgment. Don't be judgmental about a person, but be fair in your judgment with an ethical thought process. Integrity, like loyalty and honesty, are self and interconnected. Self-confidence, yes. You should have your self-esteem, confidence that yes, who's the best? I am the best. Then only you can stand up in front of anybody and talk. Because you know your subject well, you have read well, you know your own self is honest. Then enthusiasm, जोश कम नहीं होना चाहिए. Anybody seen that movie Uri? क्या है उसमें बोला एक डायलॉग? कहाँ जोश ठीक है? तीन दारा हाथों को. How's the जोश? Very good. That's what it should be. And you should be able to communicate with people. Communicate verbally, non-verbally, through body language or talking. But the communication has to flow so that there are interpersonal relations. And again, competence comes out of professional knowledge. And when you're well-read, your vision is much, much higher. We had one of the best presidents. Who was he? One of the best presidents that we had. Please give him some regard. He's Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So he had a foresight. That is why today all these integrated missiles, space centers are all going up. And he had the moral courage, even when he was a junior. His boss at that time, Vikram Sarabhai, had given him lot of leeway, and he had taken part in the first atomic blast, the second one, and all these missiles are his brainchild. And hats off to him. Though he was a Muslim, he used to listen to Saraswati Vandana every day morning. You rarely find such a person. The traits given here, and the next slide please. Yes. Any difference in both the slides? Except what has been written, Angrezi chodo. They are basically the same. The leadership traits and what a military leader should have. You have to be a leader, be robust. Robust means mentally, physically, and intellectually. Should have moral courage to stand up. Aggression and boldness. Master of his profession, well read. Common sense, which is very uncommon. So you have to use your daily street smartness, and then should have good decision-making skills. Like I said, everything is in the mind, flexible. And this is not lastly, but this is firstly, you must be having integrity, loyalty, and honesty. So before everything, these three factors are on the top. Next, please. A leader must be knowing himself and try to self-improve. Tactically and technically proficient, well-read, should seek responsibility, should not shy away from responsibility. If you want privileges, you have to take responsibilities. You cannot accept everybody to say Jai Hind to you and you don't want to do any work. Then you will be looked down by your team, by your own followers, which is not in good spirit. Decision making, setting an example, all this will again come if you are professionally proficient. Then you have to know your men and keep them informed of the happenings. Every happening need not be told to every man. It is need to know. What everybody of the team must know his job. Need not that the other person's job is also known to him, but if they have to work together, जितना जिसको पता होना चाहिए उतना होगा या बताया जाना चाहिए. So need to know basis should be there. Next, technique of how to be a good leader. Understand your man or your team. Study the problem and adjust accordingly, adjust your team accordingly. Be familiar with the psychological principles of human behavior. Psychological behavior means you have to understand, know your team, know each person of your team, so that you know the person, his strengths and weaknesses. Put the correct person for the correct job so that the job is done in time. And then analyze your men as per their requirements objectively and be unbiased. A good leader is always unbiased. Do not have any biases कि वो तो उस देश का है, वो उस स्टेट का है, तो मैं क्यों करूँ, ये तो मेरे स्टेट का है. No. That leader is the worst kind of leader who has biases for anybody. If somebody has wrong, have no love lost for him to punish him. And if somebody has done a good job, pat him on the back. Next slide. And when you pat somebody on the back for a good job, pat it in public, but do not reprimand anybody in public if he doesn't deserve it. If you are scolding somebody, scold him privately so that that person understands. Next slide, please. Yeah, coming on to some of the aspects or life skills which are required for you to be a good leader. Leader तभी होगे जब टीम होगा आपके पास. Next. Next please. टीम क्या है? एक साथ काम करो, कम्युनिकेट करके कॉमन गोल अचीव करना है. Next please. Next slide. So teamwork is basically the concept of people working together as one to achieve a given prescribed goal under a given leader. So that is what is teamwork. And teamwork needs motivation. Next please. Next slide. So it is basically needed so that the goal can be achieved in one go, and the best thing in case of a team is basically what? Never speak the word I. What is the word? We. So we grow as a team. I lose my battle alone. So it is always we. And if we are we, then impossible also says, I am possible. I am possible. Next slide, please. So effective teamwork is basically to be together, and as we move, communicate, we grow towards the goal as one. Next slide. So if you have a good team, what do? Quickly you reach a good solution, productivity increases, workload is distributed, everybody shares the load, ideas are given, and the best idea taken for a good decision. All are learning as a motivated team. Next slide. और जब टीम वर्क नहीं होगा तो क्या होगा? ये जब हावड़ा ब्रिज के नीचे रेल खुला था, दो अलग अलग टनल्स बन जाते हैं और ये हाल होता है. So it was good teamwork by the metro. That is why the TBMs dug through and reached together. Next slide. So communication is the key. If you do not communicate, nothing happens. So जो एक कहावत है ना, लड़की ने कुछ नहीं बोला मतलब हाँ बोल दिया. I think none of the girls will agree. वो कहेंगे हमने कुछ नहीं बोला मतलब हमने कुछ बोला ही नहीं है. Don't take it as a yes. तो communicate करो. Next slide. So when you are speaking, when you talk to a person, when you have communicated, then half your work is done. When you grow up and start doing a job, people say ki, pick up the phone and talk to the person or walk across to him. Adha kaam tumhara complete ho jayega. And you will move in a better way. As a leader, you have to communicate with the other people. Next. So together by communicating, everyone achieves more. Right? Next slide. teamwork क्या कहता है? Have good relation between your team, share everybody's load, and help and advise. Like when we are in the academy, we have all kind of cadets. कुछ cadet कमजोर होते हैं, we have run backs. Run backs are 40 kilometer runs with jhola pittu and everything. So what happens? We as a company participate. Some bodies are strong, some people are weak. So that is where teamwork comes in, because you as a team has to win. So what do? Weak वाले का कोई बंदूक ले लेता है, कोई उसका पिट्ठू ले लेता है, so that he is lighter, he can run faster, run with the stronger people, and everybody finishes together. And that is how that camaraderie comes up. And that is why in the forge you have a system called the buddy system. You are never alone. You have somebody to help you, and in turn you are helping that somebody also, because you are working together as one. Next. So when teams are working well, it can be enjoyable and a bonding experience. And when you are enjoying your work, when your teammates are good, you will tend to achieve things much earlier. Next slide. Interpersonal skills. That is, if you are communicating well, your interpersonal skills will be good. Next slide. So you will tend to grow together, and when you are growing, you will enjoy. And like it was given in the previous slide, man is a social animal. You have a sense of security. Here you have the warden, you have your principal sir, you have the director, you have everybody. You are under a banyan tree which is giving you security from the outside world. You can study well. And then is the concept of understanding, and your interpersonal needs are looked after. Your daily needs are looked after. Your requirements are fulfilled. And you establish your own personal identity. That is, you have respect for yourself, you have self-esteem. Next slide. Next slide, please. And these are the interpersonal relations of a leader, basically. If the relation between the team is good, they will understand, communicate, and coordinate better. The planning will be better, ideas will be flowing for better implementation and achievement of the mission or the job. Next slide. Next slide, please. So, how does communication fail? When you don't talk to each other. And you think that communication to ho gaya, usne kuch ishara kar diya, ho gaya. No. You have to talk, and talk positively as a leader, as a team member. Next slide. So all the work that is done through relationships or interpersonal relations matter. And half your work is done if you have good relation with others and you are communicating in a positive manner. Next slide. And then is something which is of prime value to us. That is time. Because a job, if it is not done in time, as a leader, if you don't reach a place on time, if you are playing a match, 1.5 घंटे में अगर आपने opponent team से ज़्यादा गोल नहीं मारे, so then it is gone. So you have two type of times. Clock time is uniform and the real time is relative. Because real time is what you are working upon. घड़ी ने अपना काटा, सुई घुमाते रहना है. Next. So time as a commodity is very precious. समय किसी का भी साथी नहीं है. And time is the best healer are sayings which everybody looks upon. And if you don't do your work in time, अगर परीक्षा से पहले नहीं पढ़ाई किया, it is of no use. उसके बाद आप जितना मर्जी पढ़ लो, knowledge gain कर लो, you don't get that marks. But only getting marks is not enough. You have to gain and understand the fundamentals of what you are learning. That is how you will be professionally strong. And all these are going on to channelize your thoughts to be a good leader. Next slide. Next slide, please. So, TM here is time management. You need it to save your time, to do your work in the easiest possible manner, in the least possible time, so that your team members are not stressed, they are not tired, they are fresh, and there is no stress, and your output is increased, and you have control over your job responsibilities. Next, please. So, if you have planned your time well, set your goal, managed yourself, dealt with everybody by communicating well with the relations that are needed, and you have done your work on time, what do you reach? What do you reach? The result that was needed. Next, please. So time management is basically the art of managing your time in the correct perspective so that you can achieve the best with your knowledge and with your team in the minimum possible time frame and on time, basically. Next. These are habits so that you have good time management or your time is maintained well. Plan, prioritize, schedule, and give correct decisions so that you do not keep your team waiting for what to do and what not to do. Next, please. So like I said, you don't waste time when you take correct decision. Next. Decision making is very important because if a decision is not given, your team does not know where to move. You have to give them a decision, right or wrong. And if you have given a wrong decision, let it move. You can correct it later, but then have the moral courage to stand by that decision. You should not put it onto your team members. Next, please. Next slide. So, decision making is the process of examining your possibilities and options, comparing them, weighing them together, and reaching the conclusive end for doing the way in the correct manner. Next, please. The 6 C's of a decision making. Construct a picture of what you have decided, compile the requirements, collect the information, and try to have alternate that will get you the requirements or the alternatives. Plan out in such a way, plan A, B, C, and then discuss with your men. Next slide. Discuss with your team. Take their ideas. Don't be autocratic. Next slide. Compare those slides, requirements. Consider on what is right, wrong, and how it is to be done after having discussed with your people, and then commit to a decision and follow through. So these are the 6 C's, and they are not deliberate, they're all interlinked into each other and go on. Next slide. Yes, this is the biggest factor to motivate your team as a leader. Next slide. This is basically the force in which you take the willful concurrence of the people whom you are leading to get them onto the correct way. Like what did I say? Military leaders have to be having a high level of motivation because they are leading their men to what could be death. लड़ाई में आप मौत के मुंह में धकेल रहे हैं. So you will have to be having a very high level, high sense of motivating factors. That is why, like this youngster brought out, young officers in the army or the men are taught to be disciplined to follow instructions. Because if everybody's ideas are taken, nobody will go to war. Next slide. So for that, you will have to motivate your people to work together, to work as a team. Like I said, reprimand in isolation, pat and reward in public. So if somebody's done a good work, given a good idea, pat the person. And if somebody is not able to do something, counsel and guide that person so that he looks up towards to his leader and make sure that he follows him loyally after that. So motivation has to be of priority for a leader, because if he is not motivating them from leading from the front and setting an example, you are not taking your team anywhere. It will stay where it is. Next slide. So after having seen what is leadership, we will just run through some of the great leaders, starting from military leaders. Next slide. We'll talk about Alexander, who at the age of 32 had the vision of what he wanted to create, and he did create an empire. Next. Next slide. Again, Julius Caesar, though he had his own weaknesses, but then he fought and took on the complete European subcontinent and created his own empire, because the Romans became dedicated to him, but then he died of conspiracy by Brutus. And his military campaigns were basically Gauls who stood up to him. So again, he was a military leader and a strategist. And he was supposedly to have been a thinking leader at that time, because he himself was professionally sound in the strategies and tactics of warfare. Next slide. Genghis Khan came over to India to have his own kingdom, and he was basically aggressive. His modus operandi or his quality was aggressiveness. That is how he was leading his men, with aggression. Next. Next slide. She was Joan of Arc. You must have heard about him. Sorry. Again, Nari Shakti. She was from France, benevolent, loving, and leading her men with sympathy. And she stood up to the basically English people who wanted to take over France and led her men to success. And at that time, like the British Empire was flourishing, she had the guts to stand up against them. And she understood her people very well and was a leader of a different kind. Next slide. Next slide. Nelson, again, a naval admiral who was professionally sound, and he was the one who defeated Napoleon's ambitions. Napoleon, again, was a military leader of great stature. He himself, next please. Napoleon, like I have said, was defeated in the Battle of Trafalgar by Nelson, who was a great admiral, and Napoleon, being from France, had great ambitions and led his men through a lot of thick and thin, but his dooms came in the Battle of Trafalgar and also when he tried to conquer Russia. Next, please. During the Second World War, later on the President of US also, he was the general who took on the Axis powers or the German army in the North Africa and the Europe. He was a brilliant strategist and a tactician. And against him was pitted another great general of the German army. Next. Next, please. Was Rommel. He was called the Desert Fox, and he rose to such a stature that Hitler was scared of him. And do you know how Rommel died? He was given poison and he took it happily because he was loyal to his leader Hitler and to his country. So that is the kind of people that these people were. Next. Patton, again, a US general who was there in North Africa, and they were the ones who were pitted against Rommel. But then Patton, again, was a leader of different qualities. He had his men eating out of his hands because he was looking after their welfare, looking after them, and giving correct decisions at the correct time. Next slide. Then we have our own Field Marshal Kareppa, who was the first CNC. And during the 47-48 Indo-Pak War, he was the commander-in-chief in that area and very instrumental in thwarting the Pakistani advance and saving Jammu and Kashmir at that point of time. Next. We have many like these: Jal Thimaya, Jal Bhagat, Jal Sundarji, again a thinking general who put in a lot of conceptualized changes in the way a battle is so to be fought. Next, please. He is Marshal of the Air, which is equivalent to Field Marshal Arjun Singh. And again, his leadership qualities are par excellence because he rose to that rank because of all these qualities which I have been talking about for more than an hour, which was there. Next slide. Then we have freedom fighters. You all are aware of Netaji, Sardar Bhai Patel, who are the correct political leaders of those times for which we today breathe freely in this country. Next. Mangal Pandey, Lal Bahadur Shastri, like I was just mentioning about. So these are the leaders that have been the next slide. Gandhi ji, Bhagat Singh, again all of them were leaders of the masses. The country as a whole looked upon them as leaders. So you can understand what fundamentals I am talking about. Next. Next slide. These are some of the corporate leaders who have built empires, and they are also taking care of this society with the social commitments to the various aspects that are there. Next slide. They are young generation leaders who have their own startups and they are growing well, and they are looked upon or looked up by their teams. And that is how they are growing and becoming unicorns, that is going on to $1 million turnovers. Next. Some sportsmen. Virat Kohli, everybody is aware, he is his main quality as a leader is aggression. Dhoni being a cool-headed person. Next. Kapil Dev was an all-rounder. Dhyan Chand himself was professionally, that is his game, was par excellence. Next. These are again some of our political leaders which I've been talking about. We discussed and dwelled about APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. APJ Kalam. Next slide. And finally, we have the man I at least respect, Sam Bahadur. Just change the slides, let the people read it. Next slide. Communicate with your men. This is where his communication. His doors were open as a chief of army staff for every soldier also. Next slide. And then he gave the right work to the right person so that it could be done correctly. Instead of putting a square block into a round hole. Next. And have faith in your own men. Plan well, have faith. When you have faith, you are sure to win half the game or half the battle. Next. And this is prime moral courage. Stand up for what is right and what is wrong. Next. A man of conviction, honesty. He would not use what is not privileged to him. What is authorized is only to be used. Next. And have balance between the right and the wrong. Next. And then never show your power to not ask for the unwanted. And next, please. Give credit to your subordinates. When the 71 war was won, the erstwhile Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, asked him to go and take over or do the surrender ceremony. He said, no, it's not my duty. It's been done by the Army Commander of the Eastern Command, General Jagdish Roy, and that is how we have that famous painting or the sculpture which is there of Niazi and Arora signing the pact of surrender. Next. Connect with the grassroots or communicate with every man. How many of you have seen that movie Sam Bahadur? So you would have known all these facts and how great a leader he was. Next, please. Professional respect. He gave every Pakistani prisoner of war a Quran to read, bed to sleep, and follow his religious sentiments. Prisoner of war है करके उसने उनको दबा के नहीं रखा था. He let them follow their religious sentiments. Next. And finally, as usual, like the government does, Field Marshal pay was not given to him. When Dr. Kalam was the president, he found out that he had not got his pension or pay for that 30 years. He made sure he went to Wellington, gave that check of 1.3 crores to the Field Marshal. And do you know what he did? What did he do with that 1.3 crores? Built a house. He donated it to the Army Welfare Fund immediately. So those are the kind of men who make good leaders. These are two of them. Next. So think positively and lead well.